Hello, happy Friday, everyone. Will Perkins from Continue here for the Lodge, and I'm joined today by Jen Stuber from Torn Banner Studios here in Toronto. How you doing today,
Hi,
Jen?
everybody. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank
Doing
you,
great.
thank you for joining us at last minute. We were really happy to connect with your team, and yeah, today we're here to talk about Torn Banner's main IP, your big game right now, Chivalry 2. I just wanted to see if you could give us a little bit of an introduction to Torn Banner while we just look at the menu screen here, and then we can talk about the game itself.
Absolutely. Very happy to do that. So, obviously, we're playing Chivalry 2 today, which implies that there is something that came before 2. So, that would be all the way back in 2007. There was a group of medieval loving guys working on a Half-Life 2 mod known as Age of Chivalry. All the way back in 2007. A few years later, after that happened, 2010, Team Chivalry was formed. So, that was when Chivalry Medieval Warfare, the first one, was under development. And now we're fast forwarding all the way up to 2000, no, 2019. We announced Chivalry 2, and it's been a roller coaster ever since.
That's amazing. I always love hearing stories of developers or studios that started off as basically mod teams, and the Half Life Two ecosystem was so great for that, for all the
Absolutely.
mods that came out of that. I personally have spent I don't know how many hours I have on Steam playing the original Chivalry. I've spent a ton of time with that game, and more recently Chivalry 2. I have a kindergartner. It's not the most child-friendly game, so I don't play it too much when she's around. But yeah, I've been playing a lot more recently, especially since you released the recent update. Winter War, is that what it's called?
Yes. So Winter War was the end of November, I believe, which was like a brand new team objective map, and we had a bunch of kind of winter-ish theme cosmetics that came out at around the same time. Uh, the Winter War map in particular was really fun. Stronghold, we like to call it internally. You've played it, so you know it, but that there's like a big snowy field where you have to walk across this ice, and if you walk in the wrong place, you can fall through the ice and die. And you're kind of storming this huge castle in this map. We really like to make things very theatric and both immersive and draw from fantasy with Chivalry 2. So, we like to make things epic. So we want that to feel epic. And that new map that came out, I think that really embodied a lot of that, that kind of epic fantasy battlefield feeling.
It is epic. The game in general is epic. And just for folks who aren't familiar with the franchise, aren't familiar with Chivalry 2, what is the elevator pitch for the game?
Of course. So Chivalry 2 is basically at its heart a first-person slasher. So instead of having a gun, you've got a sword. A lot of PvP games are gun-based games, but it's kind of like if you can imagine, just swap the gun with the sword, and you're running around with 32 other people on your team if you're playing our flagship mode, which is called Team Objective mode. And you're just hacking and slashing. You can also have a myriad of different weapons. So if you're the kind of person who really likes to have a bow, you can play one of our four classes, which is the Archer class. We also have the Knight class, Vanguard class, and Footman class. And basically, the four different classes embody all of these different types of weapons, all of these different kind of stamina and health use. So it's we got a little bit of everything, but we also cater to a lot of different play styles, which I think is fun about Chivalry too. So if you're somebody who is very, very competitive and very serious about player versus player gameplay, there's definitely a spot for you in this game. But if you're somebody who doesn't necessarily know what you're doing, we try to make it very accessible. So, you can kind of wander around, pick things up, throw things, uh, mash on your keyboard and your mouse and see what happens and
Yeah,
see what works, see what doesn't.
yeah, I do really like that sort of different play styles aspect of it. I have some friends who, I mean, anybody who's played, these types of games over the years. I think of games like Team Fortress 2. There's similar sort of,
Absolutely.
mechanics where if you want to play as the sneaky guy who runs around, stabbing people in the back, or the archer, or and keep your distance, you can do that. If you want to get right in there with heavily armored guy and just start bashing people with sticks and swords and maces and all manner of terrible medieval weaponry. You can do that. It's really really fun, depending on your mood that day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think why we prioritize that so much is if, you know, there is a lot of people that know Chivalry from Chivalry 1 or Chivalry Medieval Warfare, but we also wanted to kind of expand and include more people into getting into the genre
Yeah.
because there's not really a lot of crossover unless you're playing, maybe For Honor or something that is more sword based.
Mhm.
But if you're somebody who's, coming from gun games and you're being thrown into this world where you're holding a weapon and you don't necessarily know what you're doing, we still want that beginning period to feel fun. So that's another one of our core values is like, even if you're dying, you're still having fun and you're still laughing because you're dying in these most ridiculous ways where somebody throws a piece of poop at you and you die, or you pick up a flaming chicken and set yourself on fire. Like, we want to have all of these different experiences that you can have so you don't get frustrated while learning. But for those that kind of, put in the time to kind of learn all of these different moves you can do by like scrolling your mouse wheel up and down or swinging left and right, doing overhead attacks and stabbing people and kicking people and punching people, we give all of these different tools for you to use as you get more comfortable with the game. So it allows for Chivalry to have, quite a high skill ceiling at the top end. So if you're somebody who's, wanting to kind of duel other players, like, and live out that medieval fantasy of, being the best of the best, there's a place for you. But there's also a place in Chivalry for just like hanging out with your 4 buddies and having a few drinks and goofing around,
Totally, totally, and I've definitely come face to face with players who are just incredibly adept with specific weapons, and it can be frustrating. But what I love is you go down and you can get right back into the fight, and it's all about sort of that carrying that momentum forward, getting back into the fight. I love the sort of emotes and battle cries that you can do. It really sort of puts you in the mood and helps you sort of feel like you're part of something larger in the sort of the game's lore as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We have quite a few different voiceover characters to choose from, and they're basically chosen by whatever class you're playing. So we definitely have some like community favorites, which are there's like some that are more serious, and there's some that are just like totally goofy. Like there's one of the archers who's always like, "This is my first day." He's like, "I'm doing my best," So if you want to be, that kind of silly, or if you're wanting to be that like epic knight that's gonna save everything and kill everything, you get a choice.
Yes.
We like to offer a little bit of everything.
Yes, and just a quick note to everybody, I've actually turned the gore down for the purposes of the stream. You talk about some of those ridiculous deaths where you're being, killed by a piece of poop or something, but there are flying limbs, flying heads, all of that fun and exciting stuff when everything's turned on, and that can be pretty shocking, but also very entertaining in sort of a cartoony way at times, because the game is just very intense and it sort of breaks the intensity, I say.
Yeah, that Chivalry 2, at its core is more gory in that you have weapons and you can kind of chop off people's limbs and throw them at people. But we try to like, keep that in like a more fun perspective where it's not like gross or crazy, but also brutal enough that it feels like you're part of a war, because that is the ultimate what we're doing. Yeah, so you're in a team objective right now. So a team objective map is basically you have 2 teams of 32, and you're basically kind of doing this pushing forward and taking objectives away from the defending team. So, right now we're trying to push forward and capture this bridge, and our ultimate goal is to kind of, take this castle, and as we're attacking, we're actually trying to rescue a prisoner, while the defenders are trying to not let us do that. But, in most of our team objective maps, you're kind of trying to take land from whoever's defending it. So, it's a serious battle. There's a lot of life being lost, and, that is part of what Chivalry is. But, we have to find a good balance.
And I think you do. I mean, just in that last round there, I think I lost my arm. And I saw what might have been a Monty Python reference.
Definitely.
It's just a flesh wound. And I was then forced to use my secondary weapon to just try to survive the fight. Very, very cool. Who would you say that this game is for, generally speaking? We talked a little bit about that before, but is there an ideal player? Oh, there we go. Oh no.
I actually, before we answer that question, I just want to say about losing your arm, we actually have a fun mechanic where if you can do enough damage, you won't die when after losing your limb. So if you're, if you can get enough hits off, it'll kind of like not stop the bleeding really, but it'll allow you to get enough adrenaline to keep fighting for a little
Right,
bit,
right.
which is a fun mechanic.
Absolutely.
Uh, but it is also a Monty Python reference. We're all big Monty Python fans here. Um, but in terms of our ideal player, I'd like to think we try to cater to a really wide audience and kind of throw all of these tools out there and see what resonates with people. Um, as I mentioned, we have a very variable skill ceiling. So if you're somebody who's never played this kind of slasher, never had a sword type of game, we want people to have enough understanding and enough tools right away to understand how to play and be able to kill other people in the game. But if you're somebody who's, more willing to put in hundreds of hours, there's these myriad of different things you can do. You can blend from one attack into another attack to trick the person who's trying to kill you. Once your timings are really good, you can block attacks really well without getting your stamina taken away as much. And you can, outlast people way faster and fight three people at once. And it's kind of like at the very base level, if you're just somebody who wants to jump in, have fun, kill some stuff, you're still going to have a good
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But also, you can be almost unkillable, depending on if an archer picks you off while you're trying to fight. So I like to think that we try to cater to everybody, but obviously, it's a medieval game, so we cater to people who like, Game of Thrones, for example,
Right.
People who like that medieval fantasy.
No, and that's on the tin. It's a hack and slash game. I can just jump in and button mash and smash my way through things. But the systems are very deep and rewarding if you want to sort of just specialize and really figure out a specific weapon or a specific mechanic. And like I said, I've seen people who are just scarily good, and it can be. It can be frustrating to a point, but then you get a lucky hit in, or like you say, if someone gets taken down by an archer. Oh my goodness! Wow, this is yeah. It's the force of the blows sometimes that gets you. It's like whoa, it's the sudden. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it too, is each of the weapons has a different timing, and also there's different types of weapon damage. So, depending on the size of a weapon, it may move a lot slower. If you've got a small weapon, it might move a lot faster but do less damage. So if you're kind of wanting to get better at the game, those are all things we have to consider. Like if I'm going up against a knight that's got a two-handed sword that's really big, they're going to do a lot of damage to me if I don't properly account for that. I need to be able to block that attack really well and also try to get in as many stabs as I can if I'm using a smaller weapon, for example.
Oh no,
That also comes down to class as well. Oh no!
So now we're on the run, and we are heroically slaughtered by the other team.
Heroically, I don't know.
So much fun, so much fun. So that was the team objective mode. Can you talk to me about some of the other modes that are in the game that you can find?
Absolutely. So team objective is our most popular. We have the 32 versus 32, and also we have a version that has horses in it, which is pretty fun. Um, Outside of team objective, we also have team deathmatch, which is kind of a singular map where you don't travel around the map and you have two teams, and whoever's team gets more kills wins at the end of the game. We also have a free for all mode, which is everybody for themselves. See how many people you can kill and try not to let people kill you. And more recently this year, we've actually had a rotating list of different game modes, for example. So we have in that queue, we have an archer only mode, which was fun. Everybody has to be archers. We had a brawl mode, which is basically everybody is free for all, but you don't really get weapons. You have to pick up kind of whatever you can. So uh, you could pick up a book, you could pick up a chicken, a chair. It's basically anything that you can pick up, you use as a weapon, and that is very chaotic. Um, we also in that have last team standing, So it's kind of like team deathmatch, but you only get one life per round. So you want to try to keep your team alive as long as possible in order to win. Uh, but yeah,
Uh,
the mode that you're playing right now is our most popular, which is team objective.
it's a blast. It's a blast. I remember the free for all mode from the original Chivalry, and I believe the arena or the Coliseum level, which was just
Yes.
total chaos. There's no other word for it. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Tell me about the
Yeah, we
horse.
do also. Oh yeah. I was just gonna say we do also have an arena, and we also offer duels, which is like a more one-on-one player experience if people use our standalone servers. So if you remember that from Chivalry 1, you can also partake in Chivalry 2 as well.
Very cool.
Uh, yeah, for the horses are a newer addition in the life cycle of Chivalry 2. They are on basically all of the new maps since all of our, I'm just trying to think of which ones are on. So we've been going back and adding horses back into our existing maps. So they are in some of the originally released maps as well as our Tenosian maps. So the Tenosian maps are a series of maps that were released after we released on Steam, and they are kind of like this desert sand map. They're actually our third team. So we have Agatha, which is the blue team, Mason, the red team, and Tenosia, which is either yellow or green. So basically, we started horses on the Tenosian maps, and we've been going back and adding horses to the other maps. So they have cavalry waves that spawn. So you can choose to spawn on a horse, and some of the maps have just horses scattered around that you can run around and ride on. Uh, so you can get on your horse. The horses actually have quite a few different moves as well. So you could kick their front feet, you can kick their back feet,
Oh
and just
wow.
send your opponents flying. You could do like a little rear up on your back legs and neigh if you want to. But the horses are kind of they're not like invincible, but they are a little bit tanky and allow
Yeah.
you to cross a big amount of distance really easily. Um, I think they're quite fun, especially if you could kind of like do drive-bys on other players. Get yourself a lance and just kind of run through a
Yeah.
bunch of enemies
Yeah.
and stab them that way. It's quite fun.
Very cool. I'm just going to try to pull up some of the mounted. I'm just trying to see what the best way to do that would be.
Yeah, there
Um,
is a mounted warfare queue, I believe, on the play menu.
yes.
Or yeah, the warfare queue is probably the best one for
Okay.
that one.
Let's see.
Yeah, so basically that means that all of the maps in that queue will have horses. So we try to, as I say, we try to cater to everybody. So not everyone likes horses, and some people really like horses. So we have a queue just for people who want to play on the horses.
Hemant in the chat asks, "Can you pet your horses?" That's always an important game question.
Oh, you can't, which is sad. I'm gonna fight for this. I'm a big fan of the website, or is it website or Twitter where can you pet the dog
Yes.
in the game?
Twitter
I'm
account.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, we need that for sure.
I mean, you're not here to pet the horse or pet the thing, but there's other things that happen
Yeah,
to the horse.
but
I'm sure, but
yeah, we won't talk about what happens to the
right.
horses.
But yeah, Chivalry, there's always updates. There's always new features being added. So maybe down the road, petting the horse can be an addition. Um, I want to talk about the community that's sort of formed around obviously the first game and now this game. You are the community manager. What can you tell me about the community and how Torn Banner interacts with them? Is there like a lot of feedback you get that ends up in the game? Tell me a little bit about the Chivalry community.
Absolutely. So, I personally started on the Chivalry 2 team back in June of 2019. Basically, it was the day that we announced Chivalry 2 was going to be a thing. So I was kind of thrown into this fire of all of this stuff happening all at once. But from the very beginning, we did alpha and beta testing, which I think really helped solidify our relationship with the community. So, from basically from when the community knew Chivalry 2 existed, we were kind of like asking their opinion, asking them to play. What do they think? What do they want to see with the game? And that's something that I've tried to maintain over the years, of, you know, asking the community what they want to see and trying to cater to that as much as possible while also maintaining kind of like this overall vision of Chivalry 2. Like Chivalry 2 has a lot of aspects about it that when you think of Chivalry 2, those are the things you think of. So like if somebody wanted to add like more fantasy elements to the game, for example, like they want to add dragons or something, which while dragons would be cool, we have to stay in this bubble of Chivalry 2. Like there's a look that Chivalry 2 has with customization, for example. So sometimes we'll get suggestions for crazy customization. And while I love all of the suggestions, we do want to keep things looking like Chivalry 2, is what I like to say. But I do read everything. Like I spend a lot of time on our Discord and our Reddit in particular, reading everybody's feedback about what they want to see, like what they think needs worked on. And we try to incorporate a lot of that into the game, or as much as possible, as much as we can, within our kind of content update schedule, where every few months we have a big map that comes out, we have new customization that comes out. And recently we actually did a weapon, it's basically a poll of asking our community what kind of or which weapon they'd like to see more customization for. So I'm happy to say that that'll be something that comes up pretty soon. That the winner of that poll will be happy in a soon update. That some of the customization they'd like to see for that weapon will be happening. So that's stuff that we like to do, is kind of include the community in those decisions
Very
as
cool.
well.
Was there? Can you think of an example of a previous feature or update that sort of came from the community?
Oh, this is terrible. The first one that came to mind was the throwable poop. I already brought it up once, but I remember in particular when we launched the Coxwell map. That was one of the popular Reddit posts at the time. Was like, I want to pick this up and throw it at people. It's
Community
just
demanded it.
exactly like even if it's a silly ask, if it's relatively simple, we'd like to
Yeah,
give that to the community.
that's
So I think
fantastic.
throwables in Chivalry 2, or we like to call them carryables, is something that we get a lot of suggestions for and a lot of people really enjoy. Like in one of our recent Tenosian maps, you can pick up like a flip-flop, and there's some people that like really love to carry these flip-flops around and throw them at their enemies.
The ultimate insult to throw flip flops.
Exactly.
Yes, yes,
Exactly.
that's so
But
funny.
on a more serious level, a lot of like the combat and weapon balance related stuff, I think, is where we try to stay most connected with the community with. Um, we try very hard to keep all of the weapons in line with each other, but it can be hard when one weapon sees a lot more dominance within the game and is like, quote unquote overpowered. We try to keep those things in line based on what the community tells us, but also what our data shows, so we can actually kind of go in and see how many people are using a weapon, how many kills is it getting, how many times is the person using the weapon being killed. And we try to use all of that information in addition to the community's perspective in order to keep things, as fair and as fun as possible. So that's something that we do very frequently.
That's really cool that it's informed by the data, and so you can sort of see if something is becoming maybe a little overpowered or overused, and tweak or nerf accordingly.
Yeah, I think that that's something that pretty much a lot of games will struggle with, is uh, balancing for newer players or inexperienced players, but also balancing for your top tier players. So um, the one that I could think of is we have this two-handed bladed weapon that you just kind of use your hands and you stab people with your hands, basically. Guitars. And when they came out, they were, a little overtuned, so they were overpowered. But even now, I think like people who don't know how to use them basically get nothing accomplished because you have to be very close range. And if you are close range, you are taking more damage. That's just how it is. But people who do use them just like absolutely demolish people because they're so fast and they do so much stab damage. So it's like we try to find a happy medium between the people who are trying to who've learned but also not the best, with the people that are like super duper good and absolutely destroying everybody else. So that's what I mean when we try to take the data into consideration as well, because there may be a very vocal group in the community that says, X weapon is very overpowered, but then we look at it and we see the majority of the people that use it aren't as good as the people who may be bringing it up.
Right, right. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that it's all, yeah, it's always a tightrope, always a balance with these multiplayer games, just keeping specific elements of the community happy and also keeping it fair for the newcomers as well. We talked a little bit about some of the customization that's available in game. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how that's maybe evolved over time with some of the updates that have come out?
Yeah, for sure. So I did touch on a little bit that we try to maintain a certain look with Chivalry, and having team distinction is very important. So when you look at your enemy, you want to know right away that that's the team I'm supposed to kill. So we want Masons to always be predominantly red, Agatha always predominantly blue, and try to make that as clear as possible. So we have customization. You can customize your helmets, and then you can customize your armor, and you can mix match a lot of those. And you can customize a lot of things about your head or your face as your character. So you could choose from a female or male head. You can change your hair style, hair color, eye color, tattoos, different imperfections if you've got scars or if you're sickly looking or we have I think the other one's face paint. So if you have like different kind of war paint all over your face, all of those things you can choose from to make your character look as customization or as custom as possible. In addition, a lot of people don't wear helmets because a lot of the customization is face related customization. So if you jump into a match, odds are a lot of people aren't wearing the helmets just because they want to show off how cool their face looks.
I've seen a lot of that, and maybe doesn't make the most sense if you're actually in a medieval war, but they do look very cool. I can't argue with that.
Yeah, our armor is all just for visuals, so like you can really just do whatever you want and it's not going to give you more or less armor, which you would expect from, another game where if I have a helmet, I'll probably be more protective.
No,
We just kind of do whatever in Chivalry.
discuss that. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite class or weapon? What do you play as?
I always am worried when I say it, but I really like archery classes. I play a lot of archer in other games as well. Just because I'm I'm not as good at getting all of the timings 100% perfect.
Right.
I wouldn't say I'm bad. I'm say if I had to put myself somewhere in the company, I'm kind of like middle of the pack. Like there's definitely people who work here who are way better than me, but I'm not the worst. So I do spend a lot of time just kind of playing our different archer classes. I also really also like Vanguard as well, which is like a little bit lighter than a knight, but not a light class as the footman class.
Right.
Uh, Vanguard, I think, would be my favorite actual melee class.
Just switch to the archer, and I will try to do Oh, that is a ballista. Oh yes, let's try this.
Yeah,
Super
the
archer.
big bow. So we actually have the ballista. We also have catapults in the game as well. We like to have a few different types of siege weapons. In one of our Tenosian maps, at the end of the map, you're basically taking down this giant bulwark or giant wall. We have these huge cannons that you have to load and fire at this wall to take it down. So we try to keep things as interactive as possible.
That's a blast. And that's the in some ways horrible thing about medieval history. There's so much to draw from in terms of weaponry, catapults, trebuchets, and just all manner of terrible thing to bash or cut or slice.
That is extremely true. We do it. Yeah, we have a map that has trebuchets as well, which is Lion's Spire. I think that's a fan favorite map as well. So we try to include as much as possible, and one of the things we prioritize with team objective maps is making each team objective map not only look and feel different, but also different mechanics as well. So here you're trying to defend against the attacking team, which is pushing these carts forward, and then you'll use these carts to kind of bash open gates, or sometimes the carts have ammo that you can go pick up from. So we try to make it more fun than just like push this from A to Z. We want it to be as interactive as possible. So we have like in the point after this will be you can use these catapults to launch things and break down the castle entryways and blast open doors and uh, you know, tons of different options within our team objective maps.
It's super fun. It's super fun. I've never played a session of this game where I've just been like, oh yeah, this is boring. I'm bored of it. Just, everything is always changing. Yeah, there's always something new and entertaining and cool and fun happening. It's great.
We like to have a healthy level of chaos, I feel like,
That
because
helps, yeah.
having it too predictable, it allows people to get good more easily,
Right.
but chaos prepares you for everything. You always want to be watching who's behind you, who's next to you,
Just like what
where's your
happened to me
team at,
there.
where's
Yeah.
the enemy at.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want you to get too comfortable,
Exactly. Exactly.
You got to be a little
should,
scared.
Yeah. Nor should you be. It's a medieval war. It's brutal stuff. Brutal stuff. So can you tell me a little bit about the last update, Winter War? We're coming around to spring now. Is there anything that folks can expect from Torn Banner and Chivalry 2 coming soon?
Yeah, so I'll start with Stronghold first, which was our winter map I talked about. That was the Winter War update. I believe that was the very end of November, early December.
Yeah.
So in that update was our big winter map. And since then we've been kind of a little bit quiet. We rolled out our roadmap at the beginning of the year to kind of say, here's what you can expect from Chivalry 2 that's coming this year. And one of those big things that we've been kind of very heads down about and working very quickly towards is cross-platform parties, which is the ability to party up between our different platforms, including, if you want to party up with somebody who's on Epic but you play on Steam, that functionality will be there, of course, between the different consoles and computer. So that's one of the big features that we've been working on. But our content team has been working on something that will be coming out relatively soon. Earlier this week, we actually put out a screenshot of it, which is our new upcoming team objective map. It doesn't have a name yet. I've seen on our Reddit a lot of people were trying to guess what the name might be, and there was one thread in particular that was like, based on where this is in the world map, we're gonna guess which team is fighting who, and all of this kind of stuff. And that's always exciting for me because, like, when we write the descriptions for the teasers, we want the people who kind of pay attention to the lore to maybe get a little bit more information than the casual players, so they can kind of, process of elimination, maybe guess who's fighting who. But that's something that we're working on, and of course, with team objective maps, you can expect more player customization to come around in the very near future as well.
Very, very exciting. I noticed, I'm in Toronto. A lot of our viewers, I'm sure, are in Toronto or Ontario. There is a map. Is it Coxwell or Coxwell? Is that a reference to the street in Toronto? Do you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we have a few that I think very early on that one was actually called Agincourt as well.
Oh, nice.
We like. So internally, we all give them names, and a lot of the time they change names once they go out to our players. But yeah, we have a lot of internal references, and I think there was one as well that was named. I'm totally blanking on the castle. That Casaloma. We had one that we called Casaloma for quite a long time as well.
That's hilarious. Oh, that man was on fire. Okay, that's.
That does happen.
Yes.
That does happen. I think this objective in particular, they actually carry fire. So if you go and pick it up from a campfire and just throw it at people, you could set them on fire.
All right. Well, okay. That's a new mechanic I didn't know about until today. That's exciting / horrifying. Oh, he's got a torch. He's got a torch.
Yeah. We also use that mechanic just to allow the attackers to burn stuff down. So at the beginning of Coxwell, for example,
yes.
You're picking up these torches and throwing them at buildings and burning all of the houses down. But if you want to just be sneaky about it, you can just pick those up and throw them at your enemies as well and set them on fire.
Why not? No, classic looting and pillaging.
Exactly.
Excellent.
It's those always the poor the peasants are always getting looted, always being pillaged, always having their houses burned down.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about just Torn Banner and its history in Toronto. Was it a conscious choice to sort of start up here and found the studio in Toronto?
A lot of the original founding team was kind of in the surrounding area, and I think Toronto just made the most sense, especially as the team expanded. You know, relocating people to Toronto is also, you know, fairly easy in the grand scheme of things. That Toronto's very easy to get around, easy for people to commute into the office. In the pre-COVID times, that was something that we were really pushing for, was having our entire team in the office. So when I joined in 2019, I actually relocated from London, Ontario to Toronto, and I've been in Toronto ever since. So we were kind of just like moving a lot of these Ontario developers kind of into our one central location in Toronto. But it did happen kind of naturally, but also has worked out really well. We've had quite a few international people move to Toronto as well, and I think they've found, a very good sense of community here. A lot of other studios are in the surrounding area in Ontario in general. Everybody kind of knows each other, so it makes, the city of Toronto is also just, a little bit, it's easy enough to get around for new people where they can kind of like get where they need to be and get to work really easy. I just think that it seems like a really good fit for the studio, and it has continued to be for a long time.
Yeah, we hear that from so many of the developers and studios we talk to. It just seems like it's a great place to make games for all the reasons that you've mentioned. Just talking about the larger game development community in the city, are there other studios or games that have been made in and around Ontario that Torn Banner or yourself are particular fans of?
Yeah, so I have a couple. I'll speak from my own experience. I am a huge fan of Warframe. Which is funny because Digital Extremes is based out of London, Ontario, which is where I'm from. So I like to have like a little extra nod to them that they're from my home city.
Yeah, yeah.
So I like Digital Extremes a lot. I also have some good friends over at Odyssey Interactive, and they're working on a game called Omega Strikers right now. So I like to kind of follow up with them and see what they're working on. But in general, we try to keep in touch with as many different developers in the area as we can. I like to think that we're all kind of a little family where we all just kind of know each other when we get together at events. What are you guys working on? Stay connected, all that kind of stuff. I really don't feel like there's a lot of competitive that non-devs might think there is between
Right,
studios. Like,
right.
we're all friends. We kind of migrate between studios sometimes. Like, we'll get people come in to Torn Banner that have been working at other studios in the area who maybe want to work in a slightly smaller team, for example. So there's a lot of people that just know each other, and it's very like easy to connect with people.
It's a fantastic community, but yes, shout out to Digital Extremes, Warframe. It's a great community. Can we expect to see Torn Band? I mean, I know that some of the team is down at GDC right now, as of this recording. There's some upcoming events on the slate. Will Torn Banner be out and about at any of those events?
I don't think so, not quite yet.
Yep.
I wouldn't say no into like the general future. I like to leave those things open for
Yeah.
chance. But there's not any that we're currently doing other than GDC right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I think that's pretty much all the questions I have, Jen. This has been really fun and fantastic. Thank you for bearing with me as I'm getting just absolutely destroyed. I'm doing
Oh,
okay,
it's
actually.
it's fun. Like, as long as you're having a good time, and it's always fun to talk to somebody who's played, Chivalry in general, and is a fan of the franchise in general as well.
I'm still new to playing while streaming. Usually I'm just doing the interviewing, just having a conversation. But no, this has been really, really fun. I'm just going to see it in the chat if anybody has any questions for us. There was a follow-up question to the petting the horse conversation. Can you pet your cut-off arm? Good Lord.
Oh my God.
That's another feature for
No.
you guys. Think about it. Think about it.
Yeah. There's no bad ideas.
I'll just see if there's some other ones here. While I get. Oh, and that man is on fire. Omega
Yeah, I
Strikers
feel like.
has
Oh
been
yeah,
out.
Among Strikers came out earlier this year, I think. They've been doing very well.
Yes, high praise for that in the chat.
Nice.
Let's just see if we've got any others. The best mechanic is the armless head bonk kill for the king. Okay, so we've got some chivalry players in here by the looks of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you can lose your limbs sometimes and you can just keep going. I mean, you will eventually bleed out, but like as long as you keep getting kills, you won't die, which
Right.
is pretty fun.
And you can head bonk people when you have no arms, apparently.
Yes, you can, even if both arms are gone. You
Oh
can
my.
even lose both arms and a leg and still head bonk people.
Classic Black Knight, Monty Python Black Knight.
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So funny, so funny. Okay, Jen, I think that's all for today. Thank you again for joining us last minute. Where can folks find Chivalry 2 platform wise, and where can they find Torn Banner on social media?
Absolutely. So Chivalry 2 is on most platforms. So we're on Epic Games, we're on Steam, we're on Xbox, PlayStation Store. Come find us over there. And if you want to kind of stay up to date with what we're doing, chivalry2.com is our main hub of all our blog posts. But of course, we're also on social media. Chivalry 2 is on Twitter, Facebook. We spend a lot of time on Reddit and Discord as well. So if you're a fan of those platforms, definitely come check us out over there. Um, Basically, any news that happens goes out to all our social media. So uh, any of those is a good place to be. But if you're the kind of person that wants to have a little bit more community, definitely Discord and Reddit is the place to be.
Excellent. And I see Hamantha's dropped the chivalry2.com link into the channel. Yes,
Thank you.
everybody check out Chivalry 2, check out Torn Banner, and looking forward to what's in store for the spring updates that are coming potentially. Uh,
Yeah.
Jen, thank you
We're
again. Oh, sorry, you were
Thanks
done.
so much.
Didn't
I
mean
was just
to.
gonna say we're super excited to have this. We have been a little bit quiet, but we do have some really great stuff coming for all of our players. We had that little teaser, but definitely stay tuned.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. Have a great day and have a great weekend.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for watching.
Take care.